I'm Joanne Wilson, and this is Positively Gotham Gal. Real, honest, and meaningful conversations with women entrepreneurs and their approach to life, business, and everything in between. Hey, Nicole.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Fun. All COVID all the time.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is all COVID all the time, unfortunately. At least we don't have to have Trump all the time. So,
Not much longer.
I have so many questions to ask you, but what you have done in turning, lemons into lemonade, as I said on the call to you, is just really unbelievable. I've had other friends who have lost their child, and certainly nothing like this, but through, other terrible things, shooting is the worst, that they have been able to turn it around into something positive, which is so hard because it's just hard on your other children and your marriage and all
Oh
these
yeah, I'm
things.
divorced now. It
It,
wreaks havoc everywhere. Yep,
yeah, because everyone goes through their grief separately.
differently. Yep.
Yeah. And so, huge kudos to you for creating an organization, and the impact that Sandy Hook has made is just pretty mind-boggling, because so many nonprofits begin with such a good heart and then they go nowhere. And I think one of the things that you've done, and I want you to talk about all your programs, is that your eye wasn't on the prize of no more guns. I'm sure that is a beaming light at the end of the tunnel, but what you realize, which I don't think a lot of nonprofits do, which is, what can we influence now?
Yeah.
And what's realistic, so that we can change the direction without getting what we would really like.
Yeah. Get it. Incremental change. Inch your way towards it sometimes.
Exactly. So, talk to me just about your programs. I mean, you also have a family foundation as well.
Yeah. We have a private foundation for Dylan that started off just focusing on kids with autism because he was autistic, and is now just blossomed primarily into this wingman program about students helping each other and kids reaching out and connecting. So it's a small program, but it's getting a lot of headway in clubs, dance studios, schools, sporting activities, clubs. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. And, when you got past, and you'll never get past, what happened is, how did this organization start to, come together
Yeah.
and actually, create some roots into the ground?
Yeah. It's funny though, because we launched the organization 1 month after the shooting.
Yeah, which is
And
pretty quick.
which is very fast. And a lot of that initial, this first couple of weeks were really from community members within Newtown who came together and said, we have to do something. And they reached out to a lot of the families and basically said, here's a platform. And if you want it, it's yours. And myself and Mark Barden and Bill Sherlock were three of the people that were like, yeah, we will take this platform and then figure out what we're going to do with it.
What was the platform?
It was really just the initial seed funding, the start of a C3, the start of an organization, but it didn't have a strategy yet. It didn't have any sort of plan. It was just, we want to do something to help take this away from being a tragedy and create something positive from it. And that was almost kind of as simple as it was. And we did initially start off purely focusing on policy work. Background checks was the big piece of the time. Everyone told us that was the low-hanging fruit. So we put a lot of our energy there. That was the first time I'd ever even been to DC, and I grew to know the halls of Congress very intimately. And I still used to walk around the halls and trailing my fingers against the walls, because it was like a reality check for me. Like, is this really happening? Am I doing this right now? Because there was still these waves of impossible comprehension as to how I got here. Yeah, seriously, my son is gone. What just happened here? Because you can't take it all in. It's impossible to process. But we focused on policy, and while gaining our ground there, and really from day one saying we don't want to be partisan, we want to create a common platform for people to come together where we listen to all sides. And we read The Promise at our launch, which was all about listening more than talking, hearing both sides of the arguments, and finding where we can agree. Because it's a lot easier to be for something. Well, actually, it could be harder to be for something than against it, but it's important that we're for something. And we wanted to be very moderate and figure our way forward. But when background checks failed in April 2013, that was a gut punch.
And
Standing
it
in
is
the,
so shocking.
oh my gosh, yeah, we couldn't believe it. We worked so hard just to get through cloture. And then, sitting up in the gallery listening to the yays and the nays, and Vice President Biden was presiding at that time. And you're trying to count in your head, and you lose count, and you're like, I don't know, are we winning or are we losing here? And then when he said the nays had it, it was just shocking. It was like, how did this happen?
I
How?
mean, and then you think about all of those people, and the majority of them are parents,
Yes.
right? That they would think that what's the big deal to like be checked before you own something that can create destruction.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling.
It is and some of the arguments that I heard from different senators, I had a lot of, this may sound odd to say it, but I had a lot of respect for the senators who were very clearly saying, I am not going to support this, and here's my reasons why. And their reasons were well articulated. They were pointing out some modifications that they would have wanted. They were speaking about their constituents. But then there were others that I thought, my gosh, you coward, you are so clearly for this, but you're afraid to vote for it. You know it's the right thing to do, but your career is more important to you right now.
Which we've obviously seen more than any of us would have liked to seen in the past 6 months.
Absolutely. And, politics are,
Dirty.
it's why they are. That's why I probably never will ever look at that as a possibility, because I think it's, there are so many champions within that space, but it's hard.
What did you do before all of this, and what were all your different roles in this organization that you were like, okay, I'll take this third, I'll take this third, I'll take this third?
Yeah. So my career has always been in marketing and communications. So after I graduated college, I went over to Europe, and I lived in England for 18 years. That's where I met my husband. That's where both Dylan and Jake, my two sons, were born. And I worked in financial services mainly. So I could talk your ears off on health insurance, investments, annuities, all of that sort of stuff, hedge funds. And no one really wants to talk about that right now. And when I came over here, which was really for the boys, to give them what we felt was the best potential for life, the land of opportunity, and also to help Dylan with his autism, we moved over, and I decided to take a career break of 2 years because I had been so career focused. And I was really only home on weekends because I used to have long commutes up to London every day. And I said, I just want to focus on my boys for a little bit. So I took 2 years off and was just about to start a new business when 12/14 happened. And everything changed. And everything changed. So because my background is in marketing, broadcast commercials, media, PR, and product development, I took on the marketing and communications role to start with.
Which is, in reality, the most important in some respects, right?
You need to create awareness, yeah.
Right, because you have this mission, that's rooted in this idea of turning a tragedy into this moment of transformation. And I would assume that throwing yourself into this and being extremely active was also a way for you to just cope on a daily basis.
Yeah, it was a survival strategy.
Yeah.
I needed something to do, something positive to do.
And why do you think that most women tend to be the ones that rise up to the occasion for, moving, becoming the leaders in their communities? And, it does. Is it the internal mother in us? I mean, what is it?
It could be, or the empathy that I think is very, very present in females and women. perhaps it's that mothering instinct. I don't know. I have some wonderful colleagues who don't have children at all, but still that empathy, that concern for others, that need for connection and wanting to make sure that other people are okay. I think that is just a part of who we are. And also that ability, I think women can, and this isn't being anti-male, but our multitasking abilities and ability to sometimes see that bigger picture all at once and understand the different facets of it and how we need to show up in different ways at different times to meet all of those needs. I think we're very strong in that way. So
Yeah. I mean, and now you guys, SHP is doing, focusing on raising money from females. Um,
yes,
you know,
yeah,
for the month
yes,
of December. I assume this was an intentional decision.
yes.
Um, and, as you have spent the last many years talking to women, talking to men, do you find that women are more responsive to this?
I think so. I mean, the philanthropy world is very interesting and can still be quite male dominated. However, what I've found, the outreach over the years that I've had from teachers, predominantly female teachers, from moms who can't imagine the loss of their child and want to do anything they can to protect their child, and female donors and foundation leaders who just say, I want to be able to do more because I get it. I get it that you're talking about behavioral change. I get it that you're thinking about long-term impact and not what just can be done today. They see that bigger picture and they want to be part of that journey. So some of our biggest champions are women. And I was like, I get so much energy from women helping other women. So I said, why not? We should do this, definitely focus on the impact of women and bring together that collective force for good, focus on female philanthropy to help us reach our donation needs, which are needed to then fund next year's activity.
Got it. And what kind of goal are you trying to hit for all these women?
Oh, it's hard to set an end goal, but any amount
In
helps.
everything.
Everything. We have well over 6 figures already in the pot from female philanthropists who say, I want to be part of this. I want to use my campaigns to match against your grassroots base. This month alone, we have about a $3 million target, which we're working to achieve. And that help funds a lot of kids because it takes us about $1 to fund a child. And, we've already trained over 12 million youth and adults, but there's still a lot more kids to get to.
So your programs, you've trained over 12 million adults, which is pretty amazing. And, you have 64 confirmed life-saving interventions,
Yes.
14,000 schools are engaged, 60,000 anonymous tips have been received, and you've got 7,400 volunteers working across the country to keep people safe, which is so incredible. And so is this curriculum that you have took time to figure out what works so that people can say this kid have an issue and
Yes.
we need to be there before anything bad happens. Are you working in every single state across the
Yes.
country?
Yeah, we're in all 50 states, and then we have much deeper initiatives in certain states. So California is a big state for us. Pennsylvania, we're in every single middle and high school across the entire state. North Carolina, we also launched and are 1 year into that initiative. So we're still building out in a couple of districts, but again, to have it in every middle and high school in the entire state. And we're looking at some more states as we go forward. So the end goal is to be in every school in
Right.
all 50 states.
Right.
And that's what we're building to.
And all of this is funded by people.
Donors.
Right.
Yep.
There's no funding from state or federal government, although I think the federal government should write you a big check.
Well, we did write and pass in 2018 the Stop School Violence Act that provides funding across the country for violence prevention programs, but that doesn't go to us directly. That goes to states or schools, and then they can bring us in as a sub-grant, but it's still all donor money. And about 60% of all of our revenue is from our grassroots base. It's from individuals giving $30.
I'm sure. Amazing. And how has COVID affected like all the communities that you're working with? I mean,
Yeah.
talk about how hard it is for children,
Yeah.
particularly children at a certain age, that the socialization. I mean, I see my friends with their teenage kids and I think, ay, 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 like
Yeah.
this is so hard. And there's so many mental health issues around this.
Yeah. We were very proactive at the start of COVID because getting a sense, knowing from all the tips that come in on a normal basis,
Mhm.
how many are bullying, how many are suicide, how many are self-harm or sexual abuse or school shootings, we had a lens to say, oh my gosh, the more these kids are remote, the more they're self-isolated, we're going to see these numbers increasing. So we prepared for that by switching all of our curriculum to digital, creating a new module around suicide prevention specifically for teachers and kids to help identify someone at risk and take action, and did some support work from our crisis center specifically to provide backup support to suicide hotlines in order to, because we knew this was going to become an issue. And that's absolutely borne out, unfortunately. The increase in life safety issues that we get into reports on, the number of suicide ideation and suicide attempts has more than doubled into our crisis center. These kids need help, and the longer, no one expected this to go on for as long as it has, and the fact that it's still going to be going on for many months means so many kids are at risk. So we need to make people aware of what to look for. We need to help them understand how to get help and intervene, teach parents, teach teachers, and teach the kids to help with each other, because of course they're not all in this school environment anymore. So what does it look like in the home? What does it look like in the community? So the need is there more than ever.
And do you work up with organizations like the JED Foundation, which has curriculums around suicide detection? Yeah, I mean,
We'll point to, we don't pretend like we have all of the answers. There are many organizations out there that do similar work or better work or different work, and we'll point in the correct direction. We focus on our programs, one which is called Start with Hello, which is specifically around social isolation and how to create connection, and another which is Say Something, which teaches kids how do you recognize those warning signs of someone at risk of hurting themselves or someone else, especially in social media. How do you recognize those signs, and how do you then intervene to get them help?
so do you think technology, or are you figuring out how technology can be an actor for change in what you're doing?
Technology is going to be a big underpinning of all of our services going forward. We already have, our anonymous reporting system app, which is where all those tips come from. We have digital training, virtual live training, where we beam directly into classrooms or kids' homes to give them the training directly, and also the way that we can connect with them on a different level. And we're going to keep developing those services. In person is still very important, and once we're out of the COVID cycle, where schools want in-person services, we'll do that, but the technology is going to help us scale and reach more kids faster.
What's interesting is, in everything dark, there's always a silver lining, right? And
Yes.
so we've all been in this lockdown mode for a lot longer than any of us would have ever thought. And the amount of shootings
Yeah.
have been minimal.
Yeah.
Where there was a point where there was a shooting,
Oh
like,
gosh, we were over 300 school shootings a year.
yes,
It's just insane. And yeah, I think this past May was the first time in like over a decade that there hadn't been a school shooting in a month. So that's wonderful. However, and I hate to be doom and gloom because I'm not that sort of person, but
well, you can't be if you're doing what you're
I
doing.
can't. I live on hope, but and positivity. But gun sales have massively increased
I know that.
during COVID months. Isolation, suicide attempts, and ideation is up, especially amongst adolescents and youth. The longer this goes on, and the economic uncertainty that comes with it, that creates more anxiety and crisis as well. So we're not seeing the mass shootings, but that doesn't mean our kids are safe
Right.
right now.
It is kind of just a fascination that I've never been able to wrap my head around, which is this fear that has been pushed to us from the media. Like, I don't know how different things were 30 years from now and then, but
Mm,
now we see everything on this constant. There's a constant need for eyeballs and this fear that, like, your kids can't go outdoors. And I'm
yeah.
not so sure it's correct as much it is hyper forced at us after and one thing that happens in one area, and it's like all of a sudden it's going to happen everywhere, and that is not what happens. And so this whole thing of like we all have guns, we're going to be safe, just doesn't make any sense to me. And if you go back into our, when this was okay in our Constitution, it was such a different time.
Yes, different time and different technology. You know, the guns of today, the lethality of them because of the number of the number of bullets that can come out and the speed and velocity, it's a whole different thing. The stockpiling of weapons is the thing that I don't understand. And, I can get it if someone has a historical collection,
Yeah.
and I can understand hunters
Yep.
and sport shooting. I get it. But the stockpiling of things like AR-15s, I have yet to ever hear a logical reason as to why that's needed, other than it's my constitutional right. I'm like, my son had a constitutional right to live as
Yeah,
well.
I
So
completely agree. And, how do you think this new administration is going to change gun policy? And let's freaking hope they do. But what do you think that they're going to bring to that? Because, you know, there's so much conversation about it, but nothing ever happens. And now we're seeing the absolute, implosion of NRA. I mean, I think Letitia James wakes up every morning thinking about Trump and the NRA and how she's going to destroy them.
yeah, the NRA is interesting, that's for sure. And I've met so many NRA members over the years, and I've got a huge amount of respect for them. It's the leadership that is
Beyond.
just got a lot to answer for. But with the Biden-Harris administration, I am super excited. Obviously, we've worked with Joe Biden before when he was VP, met Kamala Harris, incredible person, incredible woman. So I'm really excited because they want to keep kids safe too. And I think they can help push the needle further. So I'm hopeful for background checks again. I'm hopeful for extreme risk protection orders. I'm hopeful for more mental health services for kids in our schools. I'm hopeful for more resources to be appropriated to meet kids' needs.
Yeah.
So, and I think that they are the right administration to do that.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I don't understand why next to every single, medical care place that's on the corner now where you can just go in and, have a checkup, or, you're not feeling well or whatever it may be, that there's not a mental health center right next door.
Absolutely agree. And especially for schools, budgeting and resources need to be given for school psychologists, social workers in the schools, or even, for schools that choose to have SROs, really ensuring that they have mental health training, because any teacher, coach, administrator, SRO can be an excellent resource for kids as long as they have the right training in terms of how am I going to work with this child and get them to more professional help if needed. So there's a huge gap there. Some schools are brilliant at it, and some schools are woefully lacking and letting their kids down.
Yeah, I mean, there should be one in every school for
Agreed.
so many people. Just like, I mean, I remember when I was in, fifth grade, and that was when they started doing sex ed.
Yep.
And depending on where you went to school and depending on your state and, if it was more Democrat or more, right wing, you had these classes. And of course, 10 years old, everyone giggles through them, but the reality is sex ed is now integrated into all of the curriculums throughout this country. But suicide prevention or, people that are having a really hard time, your curriculum should be integrated into every single curriculum.
Absolutely. And, I can't think of as adults, we've all experienced not only how hard it is to be a teenager or an adolescent, never mind in today's world with social media, but we all have moments where we need help. And being able to talk to someone, being able to reach out, or having someone looking out for us, it's not just about the kids, but breaking down the stigma there first, I think, is super important, because they will lean into it more, and then that generation will grow up, and that's just going to be the way we are.
I mean, I was at a, in New York, it's so like everyone has a therapist. Well, my therapist said, and that's just, it's like not a big deal. Like the fact
What do
that
you think the therapists talk about when they get
I don't know,
together?
I think they have therapists too, but I'll tell you, if anyone's sitting around a table and doesn't have one, like they feel out of the loop, right? So, I also read on your website that 4 out of 5 shooters tell at least one person that they're going to commit the act before they do,
Yes.
as well as, 70% of suicide people give off those warning signs as well. Is that part of, what is the training per se that you give to people?
Yeah, well, we do talk about those facts in the training with kids because we want them to know that this is real data, and these signs, sometimes they can be very upfront, a very direct threat. Like last year, I think it was last year, we had someone in Texas, multiple tips come in from Texas about someone who'd been posting on social media about saying they're going to shoot up the school, and then the actual would-be shooter contacted us himself and said, I've got my Glock ready, try to find me. We did. But so it can be really overt like that with someone posting threats, or it can be much more subtle. So in teaching people how to recognize those subtle signs, giving away possessions, saying you'd be better off without me, big behavioral changes or big dress changes or big interest changes, dropping all hobbies, dropping friends, crashing in academics, withdrawing, misdirected anger, feeling like everyone's against them, or, I'm going to right these wrongs that they perceive have been done to them. We go through all of the signs and signals, and we give real life examples of what we've seen on Instagram, what we've seen on Twitter or Snapchat, and say, it doesn't always mean that that person is going to go through with what they say they're going to, but it means that that person needs help.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you think traditional media has participated in amplifying hate?
Amplifying hate. I think that,
Or fear? It could be anything.
I think there's a lot that media, I would like to hold media to be more responsible for making violence such a ongoing and acceptable part of our culture. And I think social media has started to take steps towards improving the messaging that's allowed on their platform, still agreeing and supporting the First Amendment, but also saying that, hate should not be given a platform. And I think that they can go further. It's still a place where all the trolls can get together. And unfortunately, some of those trolls have deep instabilities that then lead into actual violence. And that's scary.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, well, thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
on and speaking about what you've done. I mean, it's truly unbelievable. And, we need more of these type of organizations to push the hand of our public government to focus on putting money behind this to make sure that our citizens are not in danger, and that means in danger to themselves and in danger to other people. And
Yeah.
so, the work you've done is just amazing. And so all you women out there that you're thinking about who you want to give to in this, December, get online, social media, and give money to the Sandy Hook organization. I think what you've done is just so great.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity to speak with you and to everyone who's listening as well.